There's a grief the church struggles to name. The grief of losing your parent while they're still breathing, still sitting across from you, still physically present, but fundamentally gone. When the person who gave you life looks at you with empty eyes and asks, "Who are you?" If you're watching your parent disappear into dementia, if you feel guilty about the care decisions you've made, if you're terrified this will be your future too, God sees you in this particular darkness. 2,000 years ago, He showed us something profound through another parent and child at the moment of ultimate separation. Mary's story at the cross is about to reframe everything you're experiencing. But first, meet Janet. Janet pulls into the parking lot of Meadowbrook Memory Care at 2:15 on a Tuesday afternoon. Same time every week for 3 years now, since Mom couldn't live alone anymore. She's 52 and tired in ways that sleep doesn't fix. She grabs the photo album from the passenger seat, pictures from when she was a kid, thinking maybe today the pictures will spark something. Maybe today, Mom will remember. The neurologist said it doesn't work that way, that showing pictures might just confuse her more. But Janet keeps trying. She signs in at the front desk, walks down the hallway that smells like industrial cleaner, passes the common room where residents watch a TV show none of them are actually watching. Her mom is in room 237, sitting by the window in her favorite blue cardigan. 76 years old. Sometimes lucid for a few minutes. Sometimes thinking it's 1985. Sometimes not knowing where she is at all. "Hi, Mom," Janet says, voice bright and gentle. "It's me. It's Janet." Her mother looks up, and for just a second there's something in her eyes. Some flicker that makes Janet's heart leap. But then her face shifts into polite confusion. The expression you give a stranger who's being friendly, but you can't quite place. "I'm sorry. Do I know you?" Janet has heard this probably 30 times over the past year, and it never gets easier. Never. She sits down, opens the photo album to a picture from Janet's 10th birthday party. Mom and Janet together, both laughing. "I'm your daughter, Mom. Remember? This is us at my birthday party." Her mother studies the photo with concentration. "That's a lovely picture," she finally says. "You have a beautiful daughter. How old is she now?" The words land like a punch. Janet is the daughter. Janet is sitting right here. But in her mother's fracturing mind, the 10-year-old in the photo is someone else's child. "I'm 42 in that picture, Mom. The little girl is me. I'm your daughter, Janet. I'm 52 now." Her mother smiles, that polite stranger smile. "Oh, well, it's nice to meet you, Janet. It's nice to meet you." Like they're being introduced for the first time. Like the woman who raised her, who taught her to read, who stayed up with her through chicken pox and heartbreaks, and the night before her wedding, like that woman never existed. Janet stays for the full hour like she always does. She shows more pictures. She talks about things they used to do together. Her mom nods politely, asks questions that make it clear she has no idea who Janet is. At 3:15, Janet says goodbye, kisses her mother's forehead, tells her she loves her. Her mother says, "That's very kind of you, dear," in that voice you use with helpful strangers. Janet walks back to her car and sits there with her hands on the steering wheel, unable to turn the key, unable to do anything except feel the full weight of a loss that has no name and no casseroles and no bereavement leave. 3 years. Visiting someone who looks like her mother but isn't her mother. Grieving someone who's still alive. Being erased from the memory of the person who gave her life. If you're Janet right now, God sees this grief. He doesn't tell you to be grateful your parent is still breathing. He sees you sitting in that parking lot unable to turn the key, and he knows this is one of the cruelest losses humans endure. This is ambiguous loss. Grief for someone who hasn't died but isn't who they were. Your parent is both here and gone simultaneously, and that paradox breaks something in the human heart. 5.4 million Americans are living with Alzheimer's right now. By 2050, that number will nearly triple. Millions of adult children experiencing exactly what Janet experiences, and almost none have language for it because society says, at least they're still alive. But you know the truth. Sometimes still alive is harder than death would be. Death has closure, funeral, community that validates grief. This has you showing up 3 times a week to be forgotten by someone you can't forget, managing care and legal documents and spending money you don't have, watching the person you love become a stranger while everyone expects you to just handle it. The guilt is crushing. Guilt about the care facility, about whether you should have tried harder to keep them home, about feeling relieved when visits are over, about secretly hoping sometimes it would just end. And underneath is terror. When you look at your parent disappearing, you see your potential future. But God gave us a story. Another parent and child facing separation so complete, it looked like death, felt like abandonment. A moment when recognition was breaking and relationship was transforming, and all that was left was choosing how to love through the loss. Mary at the cross learned something about letting go that speaks to what you're learning now. We talk about Mary at the cross like it's primarily about Jesus' suffering, which it is. But the Gospels also show us Mary's suffering. A mother watching her child die while completely powerless to stop it. Mary has been Jesus' mother for 33 years. She carried him, birthed him, raised him. Being his mother has been her primary identity, her central purpose. Now she's standing at the foot of a cross in John chapter 19, watching him die slowly, and she cannot save him or protect him or take his place or do any of the things mothers are supposed to do. But here's what we miss. Jesus on the cross is not the same person Mary raised. His body is there, yes, but he's already different, already becoming something beyond her mothering, already moving into death and resurrection she can't follow. The son she knew is already gone in a sense, even though he's physically present. She's losing him while he's still breathing. Think about the past 3 years. In Mark chapter 3, she went to take Jesus home because people said he was out of his mind, and he publicly said his disciples were more his family than his actual family. He's been prioritizing ministry over her. He's been disappearing into someone she doesn't fully recognize. At the cross, Jesus looks down and says, "Woman, not mother, but woman, behold your son." And he's pointing not at himself, but at John the disciple. Then to John, "Behold your mother." He's releasing Mary from being his mother. Providing for her practical needs, yes, but also doing something more painful. He's saying, "Mom, I'm leaving. You can't follow where I'm going. You need to find new purpose, new relationships, new identity beyond being my mother. Your job of raising me is complete." This is Mary's ambiguous loss moment. Her son is physically present, but already gone in the ways that matter. She's watching the person she loves most become someone she can't reach. And she has to figure out how to love him through the leaving. The sword Simeon prophesied, "A sword will pierce your own soul too." This is that sword. Not just grief at death, but grief at the end of her mothering role, at having to release him completely to God's purposes. And here's what's remarkable. Mary doesn't fight it. She doesn't demand he call her mother. She doesn't try to get him down from that cross. She stands there in probably the worst moment of her life, and she bears witness. She stays present, even though presence means watching everything she loves disappear. We know she survived it. In Acts chapter 1, after Jesus has ascended, gone from earth entirely, Mary is there with the disciples, praying with them. She found purpose beyond mothering Jesus. She found identity beyond being his caretaker. She discovered life had meaning even after the role that defined her was complete. Mary learned the hardest lesson, that loving someone sometimes means releasing them to a process you can't control. That being faithful doesn't mean preventing loss. That God can meet you in the worst moment and somehow there's life on the other side. If Mary can survive watching her son become someone she couldn't reach and then leave entirely, maybe you can survive watching your parent disappear. Not because it's easy, but because there's precedent for this kind of love. The questions you're asking at 3 in the morning. Question 1. Was I wrong to put my parent in a care facility? No. Providing professional care for someone whose needs exceed what you can safely manage is not abandonment. It's love expressed through wisdom. Mary couldn't keep Jesus off that cross. What she could do was stand nearby and accept John's help when Jesus provided it. She didn't refuse help out of pride or guilt. The question isn't whether a facility means you failed. The question is whether your parent is safe, whether their needs are met by trained people, whether you're able to be present instead of destroyed by caregiving beyond your capacity. Sometimes, the most loving choice breaks your heart, but preserves your ability to keep showing up. Question 2. Why do I feel guilty about being relieved when visits are over? Because you're human, and grief is exhausting, and watching someone you love disappear is traumatic. Relief doesn't mean you don't love your parent. It means you're being honest about the cost. Jesus told his disciples, "My soul is very sorrowful, even to death." He didn't pretend suffering was easy. He admitted what he faced was crushing him. God honored that honesty. You're allowed to feel overwhelmed. You're allowed to need the visit to be over. Relief at temporary escape doesn't diminish your love. It proves you're bearing real weight. Question 3. How do I handle the repetition without losing my mind? Your parent asks the same question 50 times. You have to respond with patience every time. Sometimes you can't. Sometimes you snap. Then you feel terrible. You will sometimes fail at patience. You are not a saint. You are a human doing something incredibly hard. Mary watched her son suffer for hours. The Gospels don't tell us she had perfect composure. They just tell us she stayed. Staying doesn't mean never struggling. It means you show up again after the days you failed. Give yourself grace. Apologize when you snap. Rest when you need to. Show up again. That's faithfulness. Question 4. What do I do with the terror that this will be me someday? Tell the truth about that fear instead of pretending it doesn't exist. Watching a parent disappear means confronting your own potential future, and that's terrifying. Mary's grief included watching Jesus die the way she might die. She saw her potential future. She couldn't prevent what was happening to him. You can't control whether you develop dementia. What you can do is be honest about that terror. Name it. Tell God you're scared. Let the fear be real instead of pretending faith means never being afraid. God doesn't promise you won't suffer the same way. He promises He'll be with you if you do. Emmanuel. God with us. Not God preventing all suffering, but God present in all suffering. Question 5. Is there any purpose to this? No, there's no purpose in the disease itself. Dementia is not God's will. It's part of a broken world. God isn't teaching you patience through your parents' dementia. He hates this suffering as much as you do. But yes, there's purpose in how you respond, in choosing to show up even when you're not recognized, in learning that love isn't always reciprocated or remembered and doing it anyway. Your faithfulness right now, showing up to visit a parent who doesn't know your name, loving someone who can't love you back the way they used to, that's teaching you something about love that costs everything and expects nothing in return. That's the love God loves us with. You're learning to love like God loves. Let's go back to Janet, sitting in her car, unable to turn the key. Janet didn't magically stop grieving, but over 18 months, she did 3 things that shifted from drowning to surviving to discovering there was still life. 1. She gave herself permission to grieve someone who hadn't died. She found a caregiver support group at a local church. 8 people sharing guilt and exhaustion nobody else understood. They cried about visits where they weren't recognized. They admitted relief when visits ended. They confessed moments they failed at patience. Janet stopped trying to be strong all the time, started telling the truth about how hard this was. In the telling, the weight got slightly more bearable. 2. She started visiting differently. For 2 years, Janet brought photo albums trying to trigger memory, asked questions trying to get her mother to remember. The neurologist told her, "Your mother can't go back, but she can be present now. If you keep trying to bring back who she was, you'll miss who she is." So Janet stopped bringing albums, stopped asking, "Do you remember?" Started just sitting with her mother in whatever moment her mother was in. Her mom liked watching birds, so they watched birds together. Her mom liked having her hand held, so Janet held her hand. When Janet stopped trying to be recognized as daughter, she could actually connect with her mother as 2 humans sharing space. Different connection. Not better, not worse. Different. And there was grace in that. 3. She built life beyond caregiving. For 3 years, Janet's identity had collapsed into woman with mother who has dementia. She'd stopped seeing friends, stopped hobbies, put her own life on hold. But the support group taught her, if you don't maintain your own life, you have nothing left when your parent dies. So Janet started saying yes. Coffee with a friend once a month, painting class, therapy to process grief, saying no to some extra visits because she needed rest, building life alongside caregiving instead of being consumed by it. Her mother died 8 months ago, peacefully, in her sleep. Janet was there 2 days before, held her hand, told her she loved her. Her mother smiled that polite stranger smile and said, "That's very kind." 2 days later, she was gone. At the funeral, Janet told her therapist, "I realize now those last 3 years weren't about my mother remembering me. They were about me learning to love without needing anything back." That's what God does with us, right? He loves us when we forget Him, when we don't recognize Him. He just keeps showing up. Maybe the point was learning to love like that. If you're Janet right now, living in ambiguous loss with a parent who doesn't know your name, managing care decisions and crushing guilt and terror, you are doing something sacred. Not because dementia is sacred, because choosing to love someone who can't love you back, showing up even when you're not recognized, bearing witness to suffering instead of running, that's the shape of divine love. You're learning to love like God loves. Mary survived watching her son become someone she couldn't reach and then leave entirely. She found purpose beyond the role that defined her. She discovered God met her in the worst moment, and somehow there was life after. Your parent may never recognize you again. That's the truth you're living with. But you can still choose to show up. You can still choose to love. Not because it fixes anything. Because faithful presence in suffering is what love looks like when there's nothing else left to do. The person you love is disappearing, and you're going to be okay. Not today, not tomorrow, but eventually. Because God doesn't waste even this suffering. He meets you in the parking lot when you can't turn the key. He sees every visit where you weren't recognized, and He promises not that suffering won't come, but that you won't bear it alone. Mary stood at the cross and watched everything she loved transform into something she couldn't hold, and she survived. And so will you. Your parent may not remember your name, but God does, and that has to be enough. Because in the end, that's all any of us have. A God who remembers us even when we forget Him, who loves us even when we can't love back, who shows up even when we don't recognize Him. That's the God who sees you right now, and He's not going anywhere.